You are listening to The Underground Subway with host David Alston, a podcast dedicated to giving you the strategies to live a free and better life. Here is David Alston.
Welcome to the Underground Subway. I am David Alston. Thank you for joining us on this podcast that comes to you on a regular basis to discuss ways to make life better. We want life to be better, better for you, better for myself, better for the next generation. This podcast, the name comes from the works of my grandmother's first cousin, who was Harriet Tubman. And Harriet Tubman led so many people to freedom and to liberty by way of the Underground Railroad. Well, we're in 2022, and so we do not abide by the Underground Railroad, but because we're in 2022, we do the Underground Subway, a modernized version of doing what it takes, providing the strategies and information and the knowledge necessary to make life better for all of us. We all need to be free. What does that mean? That means to be liberated. What does that mean? That means to be able to think, act, function, and do what we need to do without all of the restraints. Cousin Harriet said something powerful. She said, I could have freed a lot more slaves if only they knew that they were not free. What we do on this podcast is we talk with guests, special guests, who provide the experience, the wisdom, and the knowledge to cause that little light to go off inside of our head that makes us say, wow, I really can be better. I really can do better. No matter what I've gone through, no matter what I've struggled with, I can and I will do better. Life is like a GPS system, my friends. You need to, first of all, acknowledge where you are in life. Where am I? And once you acknowledge where you are, then you have to put in the GPS system where you're going. Where do I want to go? What destination do I have in mind for my life? Then you plug it in. Then after you do that, then you need to see how long is it going to take to get there? What roads am I going to take? Do I need to take the alternate route that's faster, but yet has tolls, which means I have to pay for it? Or do I just drag it out? And then finally, you hit the go button. That's what we're doing on this podcast. We are giving you the strategies and showing you the roadmap to success, to a better life. My friends, I have a special guest for the Underground Subway for this particular episode. I'm excited to have with me a powerful guest because this guest has a powerful experience, a powerful story to tell, and just so much greatness inside of her that I'm just bubbling over. I can't wait to welcome Karyn Seitz to the broadcast, to the podcast. Let me tell you a little bit about Karyn. As a former spiritual healer, Karyn realized her clients were not getting better. She was frustrated that she could not deliver the results her clients wanted, even though she was trying lots of different healing modalities and coaching techniques. Karyn knew she also wasn't getting the changes she wanted in her life, and that is critical. She secretly lacked any confidence in her ability to change. In other words, her adult life had stalled, and many of us can raise our hand and say, we've been there or we are currently there. In a fresh new search for answers, Karyn found the missing piece that will ultimately transform her life and her clients. There's something very profound in owning that she is the problem in her life. This awareness pushed her to confront herself and get serious about herself and her life. Karyn is now fulfilled in her life and teaches others the same journey she has taken to find herself and be happy. Karyn calls herself the happiness mentor and teaches an online happiness course for women called Awakened Grace. I am excited and honored to be able to welcome to the Underground Subway my guest, Karyn Seitz. Karyn, thank you so much for joining us on the Underground Subway.
Well, thank you so much for having me, David. And I appreciate the warm, inviting welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm excited about your story. I'm excited
Mm.
about your ability to help us. We get in situations, we find ourselves in sort of the same situation that you were in which our
Mm.
life stalls, where we look and we feel like I guess the best analogy we can make, we're doing something, but we're not. We're sort of like that hamster on the wheel.
Mhm.
And I believe that every now and then we run across someone such as yourself to be able to say, stop running around in circles. And
Oh.
and I'm excited. So I like to just jump right in and just actually, you called yourself, you said that, you're the happiness mentor.
Mm.
A simple question is, define for us what exactly is happiness? Is it what is happiness?
Absolutely. You know, that's a question I think that for all of us, David, as humans, we've been searching for our whole lives. Under the underpinning of everything we do in our lives is a search for happiness, you know, whether that's getting the car we want or the house we want, or even we decide we want to get a college degree, or we want to get married and have children, or we want to live a life of freedom where, you know, the dialogue is we don't want to be chained to a 9 to 5 and we want
Right.
that work life freedom, right?
Uh-huh.
That what I've discovered is that what we're doing as humans and all of that is so ingrained that none of us ever realize we're trapped in is we're searching for happiness. And the problem, I think the best answer to your question that's easier to understand than what is happiness is understanding what it is to be unhappy,
Wow. Yes. Yes.
right? And being unhappy, I've discovered, and what I teach others, being unhappy is always wanting what we don't have.
Mm-hmm.
Always wanting what we don't have because we think that next thing, whether it's an actual physical thing or a relationship or an achievement, we think that next thing will finally be the thing where we feel content, we feel fulfilled, we're happy, and we get that thing for a little bit. It makes us quote unquote happy for a little bit. And then we find ourselves wanting the next thing, thinking that must be it. Then I'll be good. Then my life will be perfect.
Wow.
Right. So, what I've discovered happiness is for myself and what I teach others is that happiness is really a sense of feeling good about who you are on the inside, the character of person you are, the integrity you have as a person, not to get accolades and kudos from outside of yourself, but to feel good about who you are because of the kind of person you are and your ability to take the ups and downs of life to grow and learn from them, to become the best version of who you are, or in my belief, become the best version of who God made you to be. And when you're on that journey and striving towards that, that's where you're happy. It's not about what you have or what you get in your life. It's about how you feel about yourself.
Wow, that's powerful. I had a few questions that I wanted to ask you, and yet now I hope I'm not going into left field, but if I do, then we'll ease on back around the third base and come home. I was talking to a friend recently about life and about happiness,
Mhm.
and from the perspective that I have never experienced from the inside, but I've experienced from the outside looking in, and that is being raised by a single mother and
Mhm.
having sisters and daughters, to be able to see some of the struggles that women go through.
Mhm.
And because of that, have a passion for women and for their happiness. One of someone that I know, I don't want to give away too much so that no one will know what I'm talking about, but a woman that most of her adult existence, or maybe the last 2 or 3 years of her life, has spent not only being married, but yet spent being pregnant. And then once you have that final child, you step back and say, is this real happiness? You know, I'm spending all of my time having babies. It, you know, I can't really talk about it because I'm not going to have any. Unless something miraculous happens, I'm not going to have any. But uh, is having the children, is that, is it, why is it such a struggle for women to feel as though, I have enough? Or maybe I'm asking, when you have that, what do you say to a woman that says, okay, now I've had this child and I'm still not happy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. And I work, so I personally, David, I am not a mother. I am married, but my husband and I, kindly make the joke, not in this lifetime for us and having children. However, I work with a lot of moms.
Mm-hmm.
I work with a lot of moms who can relate to the story you were sharing and the conversation you had with your friend. What I have found in working with women, whether you are a mom, whether you're married and a mom, whether you're a single mom, whether you don't have kids, whether you are a career woman or a stay-at-home mom, that we have to, in order to be happy, when you find yourself, and in the question you asked David, when you find yourself in a position of becoming a mom and having children, and yet you're still not happy, one of the best things we can do for ourselves in that position is to recognize it's not about being a mom or having children or not having children that we're feeling that unfulfillment. One of the best things we can do for ourselves is to embrace the choices and decisions that we made and have made or continue to make, to understand that that's what's creating the very life that we have. It's when we fight our choices and decisions, like, for instance, becoming a mom and having children, because it's not what we imagined it to be in our minds, and nothing is. When we fight that experience and we think that's the thing that we're unfulfilled, that's actually where we create our inner turmoil and we are unhappy. And then we want what we don't have. If I just hadn't had children, or if I didn't have so many, or if my husband would help out in this way, then it would be easier. That's the experience of being unhappy. And when we take responsibility for our choices, to recognize that we are where we are based on our choices and decisions, then we can rise to the challenge of the choices we've made in our lives and the experience that is creating, and begin to grow and learn from that experience, grow and learn from our choices and decisions. And in that, and again, coming back to what I was saying before, becoming a person of character, rising to the occasion of the choices that you've made, that's where you start to find fulfillment, because you take those challenges and you use them to grow and learn and become, again, the best version of yourself. And to me, and what your podcast is all about, David, finding freedom, not letting the things in our lives hold us back, no matter what we've gone through, no matter where we come from, no matter what challenges we've had in our lives, that when we can take them and grow and learn from them, that's where we find freedom. It's when we feel that it's being done to us and holding us back and making our lives unfulfilled or unrewarding. That's where we get stuck in our own inner turmoil, and we want what we don't have, and we're very unhappy.
Tell us a little bit about something that you personally experienced, and how did you find the fulfillment or the ability to be free from what you went through?
Of course. So I grew up in a wonderful family, but I grew up with a dad. My dad is a retired Master Chief from the United States Navy.
World's finest Navy.
Yes, indeed.
That's me.
And so my dad being a master chief, as you can imagine, I grew up in a strict household with rules and consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a very rebellious, obstinate child, a very rebellious teenager. And I got in trouble a lot. My dad was not around often. My mom was a nurse, and as a retired nurse, my parents are still together. And my mom and dad fought a lot growing up. Like I said, I was rebellious. I got into a lot of trouble. I knew the rules, but I broke the rules, and I couldn't see it in my age and what I was going through, how I was creating my own reality. And when I was 19, my mom got fired from her job because she was behind closed doors using drugs. And my mom lost her job, like I said, when I was 19 and got fired for drug use and went to rehab. And it was everything I thought my life was and my family was came crumbling down. And the idea of who I thought my mom was. And I rebelled even harder and was very self-destructive in my 20s. I got into drugs. I was promiscuous. I put myself in very risky, dangerous situations. And I blamed my parents. I blamed my mom going to rehab. I blamed growing up with a dad who was strict and had rules and consequences. And I very much thought those were the things that held me back in my life, that I very much was a prisoner to my past and that I couldn't find freedom. I couldn't find my potential as an adult because of my parents, because of my mom going to rehab. And what I had to learn and surrender to was knowing that God had a plan for me, and that in that plan, I had to face adversity in the ways I needed to face adversity in my own life to begin to learn who I am, to begin to find a different kind of strength in myself, and to use life's challenges, to use life's hardships as an opportunity to build resilience and an opportunity to become strong in the face of life. And now through that, the journey has been really seeing my parents for who they are as humans and taking them off the pedestal of mom and dad, and learning to have compassion and learning to have empathy that they were doing the best that they could. And seeing my mom's own weakness in not being able to handle the adversity and challenges of life. That's why she turned to drugs. And now I have immense compassion and immense empathy and wonderful relationships with my mom and dad, where for a while I didn't. I was very angry at them and very much held them responsible and them to blame for why I was having such a hard time in my life, especially in my 20s, where I was very destructive and living a very rocky, dangerous life in the activities I was engaged in.
I want to ask a question. I wrote it down. Do you think that, on what scale do you think most of us can say that the problem is us? And that's part A. Part B, why do we have such a difficult time acknowledging that it's us?
Good questions. For me, in my understanding of life and through my perspective, we all go through hardship, challenges, come from unfairness, injustices, some that I can't understand or even imagine because that's not the background and history that I come from. And so I believe that it can be very difficult depending on the trials and tribulations that we each individually face as humans in our own lives and where we come from and the deck of cards we were dealt in our lives. So it can be incredibly hard for us to say, I am the problem.
Mhm.
I believe if we're willing to go there, no matter where we come from, no matter what our challenges have been, that there is immense freedom if we are willing to see ourselves as the problem in our lives, because it puts us in the position to be able to change. It puts us in the position to be able to free ourselves from the past, no matter what that is, because it gives us a perspective that no matter what has happened, our past has no bearing on the life and future we can create from this very moment on.
Wow. That's amazing. I really needed to hear that
Oh,
personally. I mean, because we struggle with, you know, always, I always share with everyone that a lot of times it's not the view of others of your past. Sometimes we hold our past over our own heads,
yeah, it's true.
and it's very difficult. You know, it's something that we have to let go. Do you think that we allow people to have too much influence on us
Mhm.
because of our past?
I believe that we can give a lot of our power away to others
Mm-hmm.
and allow that to be held over our heads.
Mm-hmm.
We get scared of seeing ourselves as the problem. Like, I'm the problem if I'm giving somebody else that power because I'm the one giving them that power.
Right.
Right. And I have a choice in that. And so how I look at it, David, is we have two paths we can take in life. And I believe both can be valid. Both can be valid. I don't pretend to have walked in somebody else's shoes.
Mm-hmm.
I had to choose which path I wanted to walk. You said something very profound in the introduction of your episode today, that we have to think of ourselves in life like a GPS,
Mm-hmm.
that I have to know where I am
Mm-hmm.
to move forward. And then I have to make a choice. Where do I want to go? So my GPS is, I had to realize where I was on my map, especially in my late 20s, and blaming my parents and being a mess, quite frankly, in my life, and on a very, very slippery slope, especially with the path I had taken with drugs. I had to see where I was I was a victim of my circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
I was a victim of my past and a victim of what had happened to me. And I could keep walking that path and continue to give my power away and feel very stuck on another thing you said earlier, stuck on the hamster wheel, going around in circles. Or I can make a different decision and change paths. And that path that I chose, that I was very fortunate to be exposed to by my mentors, was that I am a product of my choices, not a victim of my circumstances in my past. And by seeing that, that's what opened up a whole new life and a whole new path for me, that I didn't have to be a prisoner of my past anymore. And I didn't have to give my power away to people and things outside of me that I had absolutely no control over. That seeing myself as the problem at first, and I can relate, can sound like a bitter pill to swallow. But what I have found is it's not, because it's a path to freedom. We all know the only person we have any control to change is ourselves.
Ourselves. Wow.
So if I think somebody or something else is the problem, I unknowingly give my power away, and I'm stuck on the hamster wheel and I can't move forward on the map. But
Wow.
if I'm willing to have the courage in a constructive way, not a beat myself up way, not a
Right.
blame,
Exactly.
right? Not a
Right.
blame myself, I'm the problem, I'm a horrible person, but okay, Karyn, what are your choices and decisions in this? What's your role? How did you get here? And then I have the freedom to make new choices and create a whole new experience of myself and my life.
Wow. You know, and it's powerful. And while you were talking, I'm thinking, Oh, I've never thought about that, but yet when we talk about, you mentioned what I mentioned earlier about the GPS. Once you put in the system where you want to go, the GPS could care less. Well, I'm not gonna say care less. The GPS doesn't have feelings, but the GPS never takes into consideration where you were before you put in the
Oh,
GPS. It only takes into consideration where you are.
yeah, good. That's a
And
great connection.
and it's important for us to really have a self check or self evaluation. Where am I?
Yeah,
And of course, how did I get here plays a factor, because I don't want to backtrack. But
right. Oh, it's very important. I want to know, how did I get here? Not looking outside of myself, not saying there's not valid things to see of who else and what else is involved to get to where I am, but I can't do anything about that. But
right.
I can look at, okay, what did I do? What choices and decisions did I make to get to where I am? That I have control over and that I can learn from. So in the future, when I'm in a similar situation, I can slow down and remember, okay, you've been here before. You've been here. And remember, you made this choice and it didn't turn out so well. So who do you want to be? And what choice do you want to make this time? And actually create a whole new outcome and a whole new result.
Wow. Well, Karyn, we're running out of time, and there's an old adage that says time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
I have really enjoyed this. I must be transparent and honest. I actually, for a moment, forgot we were doing a podcast. I thought we were just having a conversation, because that's how good the back and forth has been. I want to thank you for joining the Underground Subway. I I have one final question for you, and that question is: would you be willing to come back and we can continue this conversation?
I would love to, David. I agree with you. This has been a wonderful time. Time does fly when you're having fun. And
Yes.
I appreciate your thought out questions and allowing me to share and think on my toes and answer in a way that can help the listeners and shed new light and a new way on life that does help us be better and does help us live freer in ourselves and in our lives. So I would love to come back if you will have me
Oh,
and
definitely.
continue our conversation.
Definitely, definitely. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining the Underground Subway. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to sit and listen to what I consider to be a power pack podcast. This one has been a good one. This one has, I don't mind saying this one was from me, because the information and the insight and the words of wisdom from Karyn Seitz has been such a tremendous help to me, as I'm sure to you too, that we must stop running around on that wheel. We must realize, as Karyn did a while ago, that it is me, that all of the traumatic experience, all of the outside things, all of the outside influences that come at us to try to derail us have no authority, they have no power. And so we're going to come back in the future, and we're going to talk to Karyn again, and we're going to continue this conversation. I'm inspired because of the things that were revealed through this podcast, and I'm sure you are. Listen, my friends, I take not for granted that you have listened to this podcast. I take it not for granted that you sit and absorb what has been said. As we leave this podcast, the Underground Subway, I must do something special. I want to challenge you. I want to issue you a challenge before you go to bed tonight, before you close your eyes. Karyn talked about changing our path, and that means a lot. And it meant a lot to me to hear that. But I want to challenge you before you go to bed tonight to find a mirror, look yourself right in the eyes, go eyeball to eyeball. And I want you to stare at yourself in the face. And I want you to ask yourself a question before you go to bed tonight. Today, did I do something to change my path? Did I do something to make my life better and the life of those around me better? Or did I simply waste another day. I'll see you next time right here on the Underground Subway.